Welcome to Albania. All right guys, so I'm here on the shores of Lake Ohrid. And I'm here because over the next few days, I'll be e-biking south from Lake Ohrid through the Greek and Albanian borderlands. Now we've got a 6-day cycling route planned. So this 6-day route will take us through the Permet Mountains and then down south to the Greek-Albanian border. It's a journey through a borderland shaped by empires, war, and contemporary politics. And it's all gonna end 6 days later on the Albanian Riviera. Now this really is a borderland in the Balkans, because Lake Ohrid is not only the oldest lake in Europe, but it's actually shared between two countries. I'm on the Albanian side of the lake, and just a few kilometers that way on the other side of Lake Ohrid, that's North Macedonia. Now, a few kilometers south from here as well, the Greek border actually begins, and it cuts through the Permet Mountains, and that's the route we'll be taking today. Now, we spend the night in a place called Pogradec, which is on the southern tip of Lake Ohrid. Now, Lake Ohrid is millions of years old, geologically speaking, but it has a fascinating human history too. Along the North Macedonian side, you have a lot of Byzantine monasteries. So there's lots of famous places like St. Num, and you go up to Ohrid town, which is where the Cyrillic language was developed. So it really holds a really fascinating place in the history of the Balkans. But like many places in the Balkans, it's seen its share of empires and conflicts. During the communist dictatorship of Enver Hoxha, who ruled Albania with an iron fist for decades during the 20th century, this would have been not just a frontier with what would have then been Yugoslavia. Back in the day, there would have been barbed wire and fences probably running all the way across the border with North Macedonia. Now, as you set out cycling, we'll be seeing more of these along the way because we're following the borders and the borderlands in the Balkans. But Enver Hoxha was a paranoid dictator. He believed that the entire rest of Europe was ready to invade Albania. So he spent much of the country's GDP building these things here. And so these are the famous, or the infamous Albanian bunkers. So as far as I'm aware, they were built essentially so you could have one person inside with some sort of machine gun poking out of this slit here, and this is facing North Macedonia, or what would have been Yugoslavia. Now, we cycled about maybe 3 kilometers from the hotel we were staying in, and we've already seen about 5, 6 or 7 of these bunkers just on the side of the road. Some of them are being covered in graffiti and paint, and then ones like this are just kind of sitting here, just like a forlorn relic to Enver Hoxha's misguided rule. So I've got my mate Kevin Sharp here, who is a famous cyclist, an infamously bad cyclist.
You're not recording, are you?
I am indeed recording. Kev will be joining me on this on the journey south to the Greek border and then across to Saranda. Are you excited for a little pedal?
Across the Greek border?
We might do.
Might we?
Yeah, we go right alongside it.
Ooh.
Ooh. Kev is excited to see the borders, aren't you, Kev?
I don't know.
Indifferent.
It's not much to see. Borders are just, lines drawn in the sand with a stick.
Anyway, we're going to crack on. Day 1 is about 50 kilometers. It should be fairly flat. And tonight we're going to spend the night in a place called Korce. It's apparently a centre of Albanian nationalism, but we'll see how long it takes us to get there. I'm not sure what the Albanian roads are going to be like. Potholed, dangerous drivers. Who knows? But anyway, day 1 begins. So let's hit the road. All right, so just outside of Lake Ohrid. So that's where we came up from, and we just come up all these kind of winding switchbacks.
What a vista! What a lovely vista!
What a vista! Check this out. So this is Albania in the foreground, and then the kind of mountains on the other side of the lake, that is North Macedonia. And then we're going to be following these mountains, the Permet Mountains, south towards the Greek border. So let's keep going. So yeah, it was pretty flat down at the bottom obviously when we were around the lake, but now we're coming up all these winding switchbacks as we head kind of into the mountainous area, and it's the mountains that we're going to be heading into that basically form the border between Greece and Albania. And obviously some pretty high mountains there in the Balkans, which is why that's kind of like the natural borderland between between all of these countries, between Greece and Macedonia, or North Macedonia, and Albania, of course. We just stopped on the side of the road, a little place called Pogradec. I think Greece is somewhere that way, because some guy just pulled over in the car and told us in broken English, Greek and Albanian that he loves us and that he works in Athens and that his house is just over here. But no, seriously, he was just checking if we were alright because we just stopped. So it seems like Albania is not what they say in the media. It is a friendly place so far. Reduced meal deal sandwiches. So we stocked up at Luton Airport at the reduced meal deal sandwiches, if you see that. £1 for free half, what do you even call these? 3 slices of egg and cress sandwiches, which have now been in Kev's pannier bag for the last 2 hours.
Also, triangular cut is the elite cut.
And it's like 30 degrees. I mean, all things considered, not bad. This should keep us going to, where are we going? To Korce, which is, what, another 30k away probably. So back on the road, we're in the shadow of the Prespa Mountains now, if you can hear me over the wind. So the Greek border is over there.
Did you get the action shot? Are you still going?
Yeah, buddy. We're 50k down and we're on the edge of Korce, which is where we're spending the first night after our ride from Ohrid. And just on the edge of town we found more of these communist era bunkers. There's one here and there's one there, and it's basically just in a play park. These were all built later during the communist era to protect it from, I don't know, I guess the Yugoslavians or the Greeks. I don't know what's in there. Is there a back entrance? These bunkers were built all over Albania. If you look up here, there's one just along here as well, like in the kids' play park. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so there could have been like an underground tunnel perhaps coming across here to the one over there. I mean, who knows? I mean, they built like 100,000 of these, I think. Basically bankrupted the entire Albanian economy at the time, and no one attacked them in the end anyway. So it's all a complete and utter waste of time. How'd you feel? Pretty much the end of day one.
It's hot.
It's hot.
It's not much cover from the shade. Red hot sun beating down, and quite a tired Kevin.
Kept suffering. It's hot. We thought these e-bikes were going to be easy. They're pretty easy, but when you got headwind and it's like 40 degrees heat, it's fucking tough. Hey, we're going to head into Korce and get ourselves a cold Fanta Lemon.
Icy lemon.
And then, I think, a beer. A nice little sculpture garden in Korce. Another one there, mate. Yeah. So that's 3 bunkers we've seen just on the way into this little town. Another one just over the road here. I guess this would have been the gateway to Albania, probably. Stop those pesky Yugoslavs getting in, or the Greeks. Another quick stop. Just here is what looks like a Greek Orthodox church, or an Orthodox church. I guess because we're so close to the border. Most of Albania is nominally Muslim, although during the communist era, most of the religion was suppressed. But it's rare to see a Orthodox church in Albania. But because we are right next to the border, There's a bit of influence from the Byzantine style artworks from the Greek Orthodoxy. Yeah, a place where cultures emerge. Okay guys, so we've made it to Villa Borgjezi in Korce, where we spent the first night of the trip. And I suddenly thought I should probably explain a little bit more about what exactly we are doing and why this came about. So in my day job, so to speak, I work as a freelance travel journalist. So I write for newspapers and I also run my own blog and stuff like that. And I was sent here to write for the iNews, one of the English newspapers. And I was sent here by a company called Headwater Holidays. Now they're a branch of Exodus Travels, who are one of the big tour companies. And they've started doing these kind of self-guided e-bike tours of countries like Albania. So they basically wanted me to come over and experience the Headwater e-biking cycling tour across Albania, which is one of their new kind of tours that they're pushing, because tourism in Albania is becoming much more significant. It's increased. I was here about 10 years ago for the first time in 2015 and was probably one of the only tourists here, but now that has completely changed. This video, it worked out perfectly because, as you guys know, this channel is all about borders and borderlands, and the cycling tour actually takes you all the way from Lake Ohrid, where we started the video, following pretty much the Greek-Albanian border like we did today. And tomorrow on day 2 we've got a 76-kilometer route which will take us right down to the sort of southern boundary between Greece and Albania, and at times we'll be sort of cycling right along the border itself. And this tour is quite good if you're kind of like me and you're into your kind of active sports but you don't want to push it too much. So the 50k today was kind of an easy start into it, but it was goddamn hot out there and dusty on the roads. And tomorrow we got a lot further and a lot higher altitude. We'll be climbing up to some pretty big summits, I think. So we got 6 days of full cycling, and I'll bring you all of those days sort of across 2, maybe 3 videos. Now Headwater give you this kind of cycling app, this navigation device. You're kitted out with your e-bike and your pannier, and then basically you follow the app from one hotel to the next. So it's kind of the lazy man's cycling tour, which I like. And amazingly, when you get to your nice little boutique hotel, your luggage is there waiting for you as well. You charge your e-bikes overnight, set off again in the morning, and your luggage gets whisked across to the next hotel. So yeah, the lazy man's way to cycle Albania. So this is the center of Korce or Korce. There's this big Greek Orthodox cathedral here. Apparently this was built in 2002 because the original one was destroyed during Enver Hoxha's communist regime, and they basically obliterated any form of religion in Albania. For a long time, this city is the 8th largest in Albania, had a majority Greek-speaking Orthodox population. But despite that, it also had Ottoman roots. So there's a whole mix of kind of Orthodox architecture and sort of Ottoman architecture, which you can kind of see in the cathedral, which does almost look like a mosque. Despite having this sort of majority Greek-speaking Christian population for a long time, it then became a center of Albanian nationalism. This happened in the 1880s. Now in 1887, the first Albanian-speaking school was founded here in Korce. During the 1880s, there was sort of a surge in Albanian nationalism because Ottomans, who were trying to cling on to their empire, were basically trying to stop countries in the Balkans from breaking away. Now, the Ottomans had banned the Albanian language, and so this became a sort of cultural hub for Albanian nationalists. Now, the turbulent history of this place kind of continues. It was caught up in all the Balkan conflicts, and then in 1916, it was actually occupied by the French. Now, on the way into town, we saw a French military cemetery, and it was occupied for a couple of years during the First World War. And not just occupied, but it became a sort of independent region almost. It became the Republic of Korce, which included the city and the surrounding area, which was kind of occupied by the French, but also politically entirely separate from the rest of Albania and the rest of the Balkan countries at the time. Albania got its independence after that, and Albanian nationalism sort of grew from here, and Albanian communism has its roots in this city. There's an Albanian school around here. It was the first place where the Albanian language was taught. Apparently Enver Hoxha, who became the dictator, also taught lessons there. And then that led to the founding of the Communist Party here, which then spread out. And then after the Second World War, after occupation by the Germans and the Italians, Albanian communism took hold And then for the next couple of decades, Enver Hoxha ruled with an iron fist and built all of the bunkers that we've been seeing on the route down to this city. So considering I knew absolutely nothing about Korce before this bike ride began, turns out it's got a pretty important place in Albanian history. So just wandering around Korce, we found this old building which has Communist Party written on the front. I'm not sure if there's no like signs or anything, so I don't know if this is where the Communist Party were based, perhaps in their early days, who knows. We're looking for, there's the Museum of Education, which is preserving the first Albanian language school in the country, which is from 1887. Let's see if we can find it. Aha, so this is it. This is the Museum of Education. Looks very closed. This building behind me, this was built in the 1840s, and then in 1887 it became the first Albanian language school in, well, it wasn't the country then, it was under the Ottoman yoke.
Where's your olives come from? Kalamata olives.
We just stopped in the old town in Korce, kind of like a bazaar kind of area, like the Ottoman style streets that you'll find in a lot of the cities across the Balkans. And we've got ourselves a well-deserved Korce at the end of a long day cycling, and some traditional Albanian Balkan-style burek, which is spinach and feta. And the price for this, 600 lek for 2 slices of pie and 2 beers. That's about £5. You can't go wrong. So, cheers. Good morning. Day 2 is about to begin. We've got 76 kilometers of pretty rough up and downhill terrain through the mountains to take us from Korce across to a place called Shelegur Lake, and from there we'll be pretty close to the sort of southern perimeter of the Albanian-Greek border, which we should see on the day after. So I think today's going to be another hot one. Might be a bit cooler because we're up in the mountains, but it's still going to be very sunny, so this could be possibly the longest and toughest day of this whole trip. So let's go. So the beauty of e-biking around Albania is that you can pull over at little-known archaeological sites like this tumuli that we've just found just outside of Korce. So these are essentially tumuli, burial mounds, basically tombs. And these are the largest of their kind in Albania. And from what I was reading, this is basically a piece of Albanian prehistory. So these are thought to date back to possibly the 13th century BC, and were possibly in use until the 6th century BC. Of course, no one really knows. Yeah, there's this nice little visitor centre here, and it's all completely free entry, which is cool. This is the Tumulus of Kamenica. There are over 40 of these across Albania. Oh no, there are over 200 of these across Albania. Now, from what I was reading about the history of the Albanian language when we were in Korce, is one of the oldest languages in the world. It's not really, it's related to Indo-European languages, which means it's loosely related to all the sort of Asian, European and Indian languages that we have today. But it diverged so much from its roots many thousands of years ago. So I imagine the people that were buried here in the tumuli, these were possibly the ancient Illyrian tribes that once populated Albania before the ancient Greeks even came along. So yeah, this is the start of European history, really, or the start of Balkan history, at least, anyway. Yeah. We just come up the first climbs of the day, and even with the e-bike, if you haven't been training, it is pretty damn tough. But we were passing actual cyclists who had gear and no electric motors on their bike, and they were struggling. We're now at 1,150 meters altitude, and we're heading south, so the Greek border will be over that way, and we got to head downhill for about 5 kilometers, and then after that we're going straight back up again. How are you feeling after the first climb, Kev?
Really good. That was a nice little workout. Even though it's electric, it's nice.
What do you think of Albania?
Albania is beautiful.
First time here, eh?
The people here are very nice. Nothing but good things to say.
Nice. Wow, so we just stopped off in the little town of Urseka, I think it's called. We came in here for lunch, and we just found on the edge of the town this incredible, a very brutalist and communist looking war memorial. And looking at all the dates and the red stars, I think these would all have been partisan fighters, Albanian partisan fighters during the Second World War. Everyone looks like they died between 1942 and 1944, most in 1944. And that would have been when the Nazis occupied Albania. From what I understand, during the Second World War, Albania, like most of the Balkans, had an incredibly rough time. First up, they were occupied by the Italians, who came through here on their sort of failed attempts to also invade Greece. And then the Nazis came in and kind of took over from the Italians. And after the fall of Mussolini and the surrender of Italy, they took over much of the Balkans, including Albania. Of course, the Albanians fought back. There were many different groups fighting the Nazis, including the Albanian communists. And it was, of course, the sort of vacuum of power at the end of World War II that then allowed Enver Hoxha to sort of seize power after the Second World War, and then hold it for obviously decades afterwards. But yeah, some of the graves are quite old, but a lot of them still have flowers on them, fresh flowers, and these ones here look like they've been renewed or updated into marble. So it's clearly a conflict that the locals still remember. But yeah, very brutalist. So we're about 40 kilometers down now. We've still got a whole load of hills to go. It's been an eventful day on the bike. I couldn't capture much of the scenery because it was tipping it down with rain. We got attacked by an Albanian sheepdog, an ancient breed which traces its roots back to the Illyrians. And it was absolutely fierce. It followed us on the bike, running at about 20 kilometers an hour somehow, snapping at our heels. And so hopefully we don't encounter any more territorial sheepdogs before we get to our hotel tonight. Eb's waiting for me, so let's hit the road.
Right. Action!
So we're just making our way down all these switchbacks, and we found yet another Christian church, which I can actually stop and show you this time. Now, I find this interesting because most of Albania that you'll visit is majority Muslim, at least nominally. But here in this area, because we're so close to the Greek border, there's loads of churches. A lot of these villages are all sort of Christian villages, I presume, and they probably used to have very historic ties to Greece, Greek-speaking populations, that kind of thing. But there's still kind of modern churches here that have been rebuilt as well after the communist regime probably destroyed most of them. So these are the roads we've been coming up. So you can see where these cars are coming now. We just came along that from that mountaintop, coming down, and now we've got to go up here. So thank God we've got the e-bikes. You ready for the last stage?
I was born ready,
Kevin?
sir.
You're born ready.
Stage win, I think, for myself.
Yeah, you reckon?
King of the
see
mountains
about
already,
that.
aren't I?
Yeah,
So-
sprint finish at the end. Yeah, we've got about 20 kilometers to go, I think, until we reach our lakeside retreat, where we'll enjoy a well-earned Korce beer.
Yes, sir.
Seriously, guys, this place is absolutely spectacular. I think we're about 1,200 meters up, somewhere in the mountains on the border between Greece and Albania. And there's almost no one around, one or two cars coming past, the odd truck perhaps. We saw a few cyclists earlier in the day, but there's like no one here. I don't know if this is a national park or if this is just an Albanian valley. It's spectacular. It's really, really spectacular. I've been to a lot of places in the world, and this place is beautiful. Last 5k to go. And it's time for a cold beer. Ah?
3.9k to go.
3.9k to go.
3.8k to go.
76 kilometers down, 6 hours of cycling, and we made it to the other side of the mountains to Lake Shelegur. Anyway, this is where we're staying tonight. This lovely little log cabin right by the lake. So that's the end of day 2 of e-biking Albania. Tomorrow we'll be doing it all over again, but we're heading downhill south to the Greek-Albanian border. Oh, it's a well-deserved Korce after a long day's cycling. And check out this lakefront. And if you hadn't had enough cycling, you can then use the free pedalo to get across the lake. Cheers, Kev. Cheers. Cheers. Okay, so day 3 has begun. We've got 57 kilometers of e-biking to take us from the lakeside to a town called Permet. It's kind of just a little bit north of the border. There's a lot more downhill today, and we're heading south for the first part of the journey, directly towards the Greek-Albanian border. Now, during the Cold War, the border between Greece and Albania was one of the most militarized, most heavily fortified borders in the world. So it's going to be interesting to see what it's like today. First stop of the day is this little town called Leskovic, which is about 10 kilometers from the Greek border. And we just pulled over because you can see just on the hills here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 massive bunkers, not the tiny ones that we've been seeing so far, proper military installations, presumably because these fortifications are facing out towards Greece. So you can see in the distance on the hills there, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then more like military installations over here. So during the communist rule of Enver Hoxha, he basically fortified the entire country. He built like his own mini iron curtain around the entirety of Albania. They used to call this the North Korea of Europe, because Hoxha wouldn't even deal with the communist Yugoslavians next door, let alone the Greeks or any of the Western countries, not even Stalinist Russia. And yeah, the legacy of his iron curtain is still here on the border, still everywhere in Albania, really. Kev's pannier just fell off, but this this lovely Albanian gentleman with the donkey over there picked it up for him. All right, onwards to the border. Mate, this scenery is insane.
It doesn't really do it justice on.
So Albanian lad bringing up some. So what he's got? Bringing up the donkey with some leaves. Nice.
Friends?
Greece is 5 kilometers that way, and the border is marked by a river, which we should find pretty soon. All of this region of Albania that we're in now, and Greece on the other side of the border, all used to be part of the Ottoman Empire. Now, the border itself that we're going to see wasn't really established, of course, until 1913, after the Balkan Wars, when the Ottoman Empire was collapsing, and after Greece and then Albania had their independence. But as we've seen from the sort of Greek-speaking communities living in this kind of southern borderland, and all the Christian churches, this was obviously a sort of contested area. And at times the Greeks did try to take this part back, including during the First and Second World Wars. And we should reach the border soon, where we're going to find a bridge which has some interesting Second World War history. Beautiful. All right, so we've made it down to the border. The border runs along the river, which is just along here, and there's this curious piece of history just through these bushes. Ooh. So the other side of this river is Greece. So this is the river Saran Taparos. And for what looks like a long part of its length on the map anyway, on Google Maps, it forms the border between Greece and Albania. So right now we're stood on the edge of this old bridge, which has been carved in half by the looks of it. It's been literally destroyed. So it no longer connects these two countries together. During the Second World War, this bridge here, this little bridge, was the scene of fierce fighting between Italian forces and between Greek forces. Now the Italians had already occupied Albania, and Mussolini, the dictator, wanted to also invade Greece and take over lots of Greek territory. The Italians were surprised because the Greeks put up one hell of a fight and eventually kicked out the Italians. And much of the fighting would have happened in places like this, basically along the borders. And the Greeks pushed the Italians back across this bridge, and then from here actually went on to occupy large parts of what should have been Albanian territory, including Korce, where we came from the other day, and Gjirokastër, where we're heading hopefully tomorrow. Because the Italians failed in their attempt to invade Greece, Hitler said he would send in troops and ended up occupying much of Albania and then much of Greece as well. I don't know when this bridge was actually destroyed, if it was destroyed during the war, but during the Cold War era that followed the Second World War, Enver Hoxha turned Albania into basically a prison for his own people. So they would have destroyed any way in or out of Albania into Greece. During the Cold War era, there would have been no way to cross over from here to escape Albania, basically, to escape the communist rule. Partisan. It's an incredible border because it just literally drops away down to the river below. And then on the other side, can't really see it on the camera, but there's a little hut, which is possibly some sort of Greek security checkpoint. I'm not sure. But I mean, along this way, you could probably just hop over the river if you wanted to. Swim across. Fancy a swim, Kev? So I'm going to carry on along this road, which follows the river and the border. And then there should be some of the more modern crossing points where you can now cross fairly freely between Greece and Albania. Of course, though, this still marks the divide between what is in effect two parts of Europe, because Greece is in the European Union and Albania is not yet in the European Union. So I'm not sure how much freedom of movement there is between the two countries, but I presume it's fairly liberal. We've seen a lot of Greek cars here. For us as Brits to get in, it's very easy. But for Albanians to get into Greece, I'm not 100% sure how easy that is. But we'll head down that way, check out the modern border crossing into Greece, and then carry on north. There we go. So this is the modern crossing into Greece. So you head over this bridge and then the European Union is over there. But to get across it, you have to go through passport controls in Albania and then Greece. So what we're going to do is just continue on our route and head up north towards a place called Permet, which will take us through the Borgjezi Valley, the wild river, Europe's last wild river and a national park. So let's get going. Let's go. We're just following the Borgjezi River. This is one of the last free-flowing wild rivers left in Europe. That means that its course runs unaltered from its source in the Greek mountains, which are now to our south, north to the Adriatic Sea, where it ends on the Albanian coast. Now in 2023, this whole river area, the river valleys in Albania, were declared the first wild river national park in Europe.
Stop there. Work out how to get to a farmer river. Is that all? Okay, we're 49 kilometers down today, following the river still. We just come to this viewpoint. It's one of 8 along the river. Let's see what it looks like. Epic gorge and river scenes. And it's like no one else around. You've got to get yourself to this part of Albania if you want some really wild scenery still. This is the Wild River, the last in Europe. So we found a little hidden spot about 6 kilometers off the main route. We followed the canyon. This isn't the river we were following, but a tributary of it. And it leads to this place where you've got this incredible Ottoman arched bridge. And just across from it as well, on the opposite side, you've got all these hot springs, thermal hot springs, where everyone's just chilling out. It's a Saturday, everyone's here for the weekend. Yeah, nice spot to relax before we continue on for the final section to Permet. Got 100 lek corn on the cob. Beautiful, eh? Cheers. Cheers. And this is the thermal pool. We're going to take a dip in a sec, opposite the Ottoman Bridge. Thermal swim complete. We've got 14 kilometers left to get to Permet, where we're ending day 3. We've made it to Permet. It was more like 70 kilometers with the additional stopover in the canyon there we showed you. But we're just here on the outskirts of town because this is a war memorial. So in 1944, Permet became the site of the signing of an important treaty, the Treaty of Permet. So the signing of the Treaty of Permet in 1944 during the Second World War essentially laid the groundwork for the post-war Albanian government, basically. So this is a far more important place than I realised. I never even knew this place existed until I saw it on the cycling itinerary. So this is a memorial as well to the partisans who were killed. Looks between January, March, all through the year really in 1944. This little town here on both banks of the river, this is where we will be spending the night. So our next hotel I think is on the other side of this little bridge down there. So we're going to cross over the river Borgjezi, the Wild River, and then settle in for the night. That's pretty much the day's cycling done for us. So once again, go find another beer and yeah, chill out. So we've got another 40 kilometers to cycle tomorrow.